Hello everyone, I am Soren Deal, and this is my Sprint 3 ist361 project demo. You're looking at my Sprint 3 backlog items right now, and as you can tell right here, I did not complete what I set out to complete, and that's just purely me, A, finding it pretty hard to sit at a computer and think like a machine, and B, finding it extremely hard to estimate how long it is going to take me to sit at a computer and think like a machine. There's more to each of these features than I thought there was, and to creating them, more complications that I just didn't anticipate. And I guess it's a good thing I don't have a paying client who's demanding these be finished on time, because they just take longer than I thought they would. So, just to summarize real quick here, this first item, create new feature title, is the ability to view stats based on game title. The second item is just testing acceptance of that feature. The third item is to create a new feature based on viewing stats based on genre. And then testing acceptance of that, and then create a new feature based on language, and that's language is where I'm stopped, and that's just due to running out of time for the week. So let's take a look at my code, or actually let's take a look at my application. So this is the first week. All right, let's not do that. This is the first week where I feel like I've created something that someone might really use, and I'll talk about why that is in a minute. But what this is right here is this title stats page, and so you can search by title just like you could on my other title query page. Let's say Argo. Yeah, let's do that actually. So this game, Argo, is sort of a typical. I think it was published by a publisher. I still haven't looked. Honestly, I should. But what I like about it here is that it has an extremely typical daily active users curve, and this is not daily active users. It should be noted. This is daily average concurrent players. Daily active users is a harder stat to get access to. People generally pay for information like that, and also, it's not always clear where that information comes from and how reliable it is. But anyway, this is a very typical daily active users curve for a game, and this is what you're seeing here is it peaks sometimes at release, sometimes soon after release. In this case, it peaked at release. 26 June is both one of the first days I started collecting data, and it was also the day of release or the day after release for Argo. It has 6,204 players at release. It steadily falls off. I don't know if these little peaks, these spikes, are typically in a daily active users scenario where you're viewing the data. Those spikes correlate to updates and new expansions and things like that, changes. These may just be noise in my data, since my data is not very good right now, just because it's not very high quality, because I have not set up cron jobs on my back end, so it's just it's only pulling data when I tell it to versus systematically. But anyway, so that's like an interesting thing that might be useful to someone, being able to view daily active concurrent players for Argo. You can also, and these two things are not fully blended yet, these two features, but you can also select multiple games. So let's select Lux in Time. So Lux in Time has had anywhere from 0 to 1 players, which is sadly typical of most of these games on here, you'll see. Tubler VR has not had any players, nor has Wrecked Racer. But let's get rid of all of these, they're not good. Faster Than Light, so we want to compare Faster Than Light, and Faster Than Light is pretty remarkable. You see it has a similar number of users to Argo as it fell off, but Faster Than Light was released 5 years ago. I don't know. What do I want to pick here? Hopefully something popular. Let's try that. Nope, that's not popular. What is it? Oh, it's got 45 players. So anyway, you can see multiple games on this chart at the same time. And the x-axis, I should have said this before, but the x-axis, if it wasn't clear, is time ranging from 26 June to 15 July, which is just That's when my data exists. So that's how Vaadin does that. And the y-axis is the player count. And yeah, I could probably pretty up this graph a bit so that it's more clear. Bionic attack. So anyway, so as you can see, but no one's playing Bionic attack. Okay. STLD the Redux. Okay. Anyway, I can't find a popular game. This Nongun's game is interesting because it apparently says it supports tons of different languages, but only 3 people play it. So they either invested a lot of money translating a game no one plays, or they're lying. But yeah, so you can view multiple games, and here's how that lines up with my user stories. In one of my user stories, it was a group of developers who had a game that was didn't really fit into any specific genre, but the game developers had a list essentially of games that it was similar to or a blend of, and they wanted to view performance metrics for those games all together. And this feature allows you to do that. To improve that functionality, what I really need to do is I need to create a second grid here and allow people to select games on this grid, move them to the second grid, and then view what's on this second grid. The problem right now is that when you search for a game and check it, it clears out all of your other data because these records no longer exist. And that's not ideal. So there's still some work to be done on this, but I am happy with it. It is functional. It took a surprising amount of work. So let's look at the other piece I have set up here. No, that's not it. Genre. So the other feature I implemented this week, or these last 2 weeks, is to view performance by genre, and it works very similar to the title, except there's no filter. You just can scroll through and search for the genre, and you notice immediately there's way too many genres here. I only have 20 genres in my database. Right now there is a row here for each row in my view, and my view is set up to have a row for each day, and each genre. So yeah, that's not ideal, but you can see some pretty cool information. So Action averages 30 users per day, or somewhere between 30 and 59. So that's useful in and of itself. You can see how popular different genres are on Steam. That certainly lines up with sort of what I wanted in my use case scenarios. I wanted people to be able to look at games by different metrics and see how popular they are and how well they're doing. And you can see in this one that free-to-play is by far the most popular. Let's select them all, actually. Yeah, so you can see in here that free-to-play, by far the most popular. Yeah, it's kind of hard to read this because of all those extra genres in there, duplicate genres. But free-to-play is by far the most popular. Violent is the next most popular. And then the third most popular, it looks like, is... I don't know, is that sexual content? Well, anyway, there you go. So those are my features for this week. The way I'm going to improve this one, obviously, is to change how this grid is populated. Unfortunately, right now, the grid is populated with data that is then directly fed to the chart, so I'm going to have to change that. Oh, let's look at my code, and we'll talk about it. How am I on time? Okay. So, my code. So, essentially, same structure. I have a database utility that populates container items that are then data transfer objects, that could be called, then transferred to the UI, the view/controller, which is kind of blended together a little bit. I guess you could say the controller is the Spring annotations, but it's kind of blended with Vaadin. And then the controller injects those items into the view and displays it for you. And that's all done in these Vaadin UI files. So, this is, okay, let's look at my genre query. Okay, So this is my database utility for the query, and this right here, this list string get genres is not currently used. That's how I'm gonna fix my my problem that I'm having with multiple genres. But anyway, what happens here, and this is due to a great suggestion from the professor, Steven, who said, use a view. And that's exactly what I did, and it eliminated tons of code and complications because I can now use select from, which allows me to very simply fetch the records I want using the where clause I want from a specific table. And select from can only fetch records from a table, and it fetches that table's automatically generated container items called records for Jooq. And so this just made my life much easier. I guess the complication here, and I'll show it to you real quick, is that I had to write create these views using these select statements. So I had to write the select statements. So basically I moved a lot of my code from inside Java into PostgreSQL. And one problem here, one thing I did here that's really ugly, is this is currently, the genre view is currently a view on top of a view, because I wanted to divide the sum of average concurrent players for a genre by the number of games in that genre. And you can see those columns are both here in this first view as genre concurrent players, and then as genre games, which is created through a join of a subquery. But you cannot reference aliases in the same select statement, so I couldn't just divide. So I couldn't find, I'm sure there's a better way to make this work, but what I did is I created another view that selects those two columns and then divides by them, since they're not aliases in the next select statement. There's probably a much cleaner way to do that, but right now I have a view sitting on top of a view for my genre view. But anyway, let's look at how the genre stats works. Essentially, it creates a page with a layout that just has a grid on it, as you saw. And that grid has the list of genre names, and again, that needs to be fixed. But that grid has a selection listener, so when the listener is called, when something is selected on the grid, the chart gets updated, as you see here. And this is just to make sure that the query actually did return something, or that the select item is a real item. This can probably go away, actually, now that I've ironed out how I'm doing this. What happens is a set is returned of genre average player records, and the chart then populates with that set. It's kind of hard to explain. Anyway, these are the chart settings. This is another frustration of mine from this sprint, is that there's not a clear way to remove data from a chart. Well, there is a clear way, and that clear way is to iterate through every item in a series. Data on a chart in Vaadin is made up of series, so each line you saw was a series of data. And the way to remove data, the only one I could find, is to iterate through each series and remove every item, which is terrible. I don't know why you can't just remove a series, but my solution is just to recreate the chart every time the chart is supposed to be updated. Which is not ideal, I am sure, from like a work factor standpoint, but that's just the only way I could find to do it that worked. I set timeline to true to indicate that it's a time series chart. Here's the title, chart stats, and then I go through each item in the set of records, and I create a series based on that item. So that essentially each item is like a genre, you could think of it that way. And then I'm creating a series based on the stats for that genre. Yeah, so this code is broken. It doesn't work right now. It was supposed to set the title based on if only one genre is selected, it sets the title to include the genre. Otherwise, it just sets it to this generic statement. Anyway, so the chart gets added to the layout here, and then the layout gets displayed. And I think I'm out of time. Yeah, I'm going to call it there.